I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you're listening to Wild Voice, the podcast where I take this voice of mine and share my wild journey with you. Being widowed at 34 with a 15-month-old, most would see as life ending. And instead, I alchemized it and put life back together, and it became more beautiful and fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. Through this life shift of mine, I realized who I am and what I'm here to do. I'm an intuitive energy healer, and sharing how I view the world is how I help you upgrade your life and alchemize your journey into magic. From day one, I wanted to share my journey, call it intuition, but I knew it was going to do more good out in the world than keeping it to myself. So when I say I've mastered life, that doesn't mean I'm perfect or that life is. I mean, I've mastered the concept of life, and I want to share that with you. At night, Bob was really good at getting Nash to sleep. It was almost like this calming energy they brought out in each other, and it lined up just perfectly right before bed. Bob didn't feel like he did much right while he was here, but seeing he could get no-nap Nash to fall asleep, well, that seemed like a big win in his book. Something he knew he could do, and not only well, but it was crucial to our survival. Life-saving at times. He had his own methods. One was he would rest Nash's head on his shoulder, and with one arm scoop Nash's body while tucking one of Nash's legs up higher than the other. I got a picture of it once when we were leaving my parents' house one night. It's probably one of my favorite pictures of the two of them, for what it represents. How genuine the moment was, no matter what was going on outside of it. One of the other methods was he would switch the noise machine setting to the lullaby mode, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star specifically. I would laugh and say he was just making shit up at this point to act like he was Mary Poppins. Whatever it was, it worked. Well, my late nights now consisted of me laying on the floor, pretending like I was asleep, hoping Nash would follow suit. There were a lot of tear-filled nights for both Nash and I, many with me laying on that hardwood floor. Out of desperation to find some balance between the holding him the whole night and leaving him to cry, I started putting my hand inside the crib while I was laying on the floor. And that did help, actually. So that was a little win. There was something about Nash holding my hand as he fell asleep that helped his little body calm down. The hardwood floor, by the way, would get cold and very uncomfortable, so I eventually got smart and rolled out the red carpet treatment for myself by throwing down a blanket and pillow. I think this all helped it be more believable for Nash too. My intention was he would know he could do this on his own without feeling like he was alone. One night, channeling my inner Mary Poppins, I figured I would try the lullaby setting on the noise machine. With tears in my eyes, I did the routine of laying on the floor with my hand in the crib. Nash normally would either hold onto my hand or lay on it out of comfort. He started to drift off to sleep easier that night, but almost fighting it at the same time. Tossing and turning, he eventually sat up and looked at me through the crib and shook his head. No. He started to cry, but a sad cry, not an upset or angry cry, kind of one that's tear-filled and they start to fall down his cheeks. Even though it was dark, I could tell that was happening. With tears in my eyes, I knew what he was telling me. That lullaby now was his reminder to be sad. Bob was the only one that used it. I went and turned it off and went back to the crib where Nash was just sitting, looking up at me. I scooped him up and now rocking him with his head on my shoulder, I started humming. I didn't know where I was going to go from here, but a sad lullaby was not going to be it. So I went with what came to my head, something that would be comforting, that I would want to listen to too, and the opposite of sad. I started singing Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. You're most likely familiar with the song, but if not, it starts with, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is going to be all right. If you thought I was going to sing that, try again. The words obviously will make sense to you, I'm sure, but the title got me too. Nash, Alvin, and I were the three little birds, the three amigos, and everything was going to be all right if I said so. Nash fell asleep calmly that night, and although it wasn't the answer to all of our nighttime prayers, it was the start to us replacing the old with the new, and what worked for us. It wasn't until Nash started gaining more of a vocabulary that he would start commenting on my singing. For sure, he has been witness to me belting out a song or two in the car, and I for sure look back at him and smile when Three Little Birds ever comes on. And it was on one day, and while singing it in the car, I turned to check on Nash, as parents often do to their kids, to see tears in his eyes, and almost a sweet, sad look on his face. And I asked him, "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" And he said, "Mama, your voice is so beautiful. It makes me feel love inside." Through tears, this is how he responded to me. Now I was trying to hold back tears. I don't have a singing voice of an angel, that is for sure. So he really must love me. To this day, I'll sometimes sing this song to Nash, or he'll hear it in the car and he'll say, "Hey, Mom, it's our song." And now he sings it with me, or to me. So Nash and I want to share our song with you. For those times you're just trying to get through the day, a moment, a season of life, an emotion, don't worry. Every little thing is going to be all right. Music started to be a huge outlet for me. I felt like I was starting to hear songs and I would hear them in depth, and I hadn't been able to before. I would pick up on a way a song would make me feel, or the words would stand out, or the instruments used. I would be thinking about something or a decision I needed to make, or processing an emotion in the car, and a song would come on, and either stand out to me in ways like someone was talking to me through a song, or like my intuition was guiding me. It started to almost be comical. I felt like my radio was talking to me. I felt like the radio or my playlist were backing up decisions I was making. For example, if I had a song I loved and I was wondering if I should go do something or not, and that song came on, it started to be a guiding post. Like, okay, I love that song, and that song came on 3 times today within a span of time I was thinking about this decision. So to me, that's a yes. I brought up an intuitive tarot card reader I worked with. Her name is Angie. When I had sessions with her, I noticed she used music, and I loved that. She would tell me she got guidance through songs, like a confirmation to her intuition. And I've always loved music. Being a dancer, you almost have to strip the song and hear it in layers to be able to pick up the choreography you're being taught. And songs would just give me a feeling. For dancers, we attach an emotion to it, like acting or an art. You have to connect to it to bring it to life. I'm sure you can tell the difference between someone just dancing to a song they're performing and someone who performs, who almost leaves you in tears because of the journey they have just taken you on. So I started to put the pieces together of this person I have always been at my core. Things about me that felt weird started to make sense. And the more I healed, learned more about myself, and absorbed through my spiritual teacher training program, I started to make sense of my past and where it was taking me. Things I would have pushed away and thought were weird, I was starting to embrace. And not from a hard-ass standpoint like I used to, from the space of protecting myself, like take it or leave it, but almost like the outside didn't matter. If it's me, whether you like it or not, that's not really any of my business. And as long as I'm me and acting in alignment with that, then that's really what's best for all of us. The more I hide it or push it away, for any of us, the more harm that does. This is where I started to grasp the concept, hurt people hurt people. I saw that play out in front of my eyes with Bob. He was hurting terribly, and he terribly hurt those that he loved and that loved him. So the more I embraced who I am, the less hurt I felt. So that meant the less likely I was to hurt others. Now life happens, and as you know, and you guys get, I'm not perfect. With this intention, though, I was moving in the right direction, and I could feel it. I got a call from Alessandra one day after a session we had. And I was like, what's going on? If you know Al, he doesn't do the calling or finding you. You find him. And he started to tell me he had an idea. And he said, I think you're meant to do this. And I was like, do what? And he said, be a healer? And I laughed. But he wasn't laughing. I told him, I'm not psychic or intuitive. I'm calling you for help. Are you firing me? And he laughed and said, yes, you are. And no, I'm not firing you. Quite the opposite. He went into detail about how sessions were going with us and the types of questions I was asking. He said people that are just meant to have sessions or two and go on their way approach things different. That's not you. You're asking questions that people don't ask unless they are grasping this on a soul level. You're asking questions that your soul wants answers to, and you're moving through this and catching on quickly. And he said, I want you to be a part of my school, go through my teacher training program, and teach classes and become a healer yourself. Technically, you already are one. You were born this way. But I just have some tools and practice to help remind you. He mentioned there was a level 1 class that was starting and for me to jump right into it. He said there would be a couple classes I would need to catch up on, but I'm a quick learner. I was shocked. Quick learner? I have always been terrible at school, and I don't think anyone has said I was a quick learner. And he said, now who decided that? I realized in that moment, he was Mr. Miyagiing me. And I laughed and said, you're trying to teach me something right now, aren't you? And he said, is it working? What do you say? And I got butterflies. Was this it? Was this my thing? My career? What I was meant to do? I sat with it for a second and figured, I guess this is as good time as any. I was giddy, which was a feeling I can't say I had felt in a while, let alone ever about my career or work. And I realized this is what it feels like to really align with what feels right, with what you're meant to do. It's so different. It all just clicked. And if you found your vocation, your soul pull, you know the feeling I'm talking about. And if you haven't felt it yet, or don't know if you have, don't you worry about a thing. It's so easy to find. Sometimes we just need someone who has that intuitive ability to help us. So I got you, and Alessandro got me. And we're going to talk about this in an upcoming episode, Alessandro and I. You're not going to want to miss it. So the school and Alessandro are based out of LA. So with travel being something that lit me up lately, I loved the idea of having a reason to head that way from time to time. And until then, I would do classes remotely. I was the only transplant outside of LA. So with time, I started to meet people through the school. And oh my goodness, think of it like a spiritual X-Men school. I finally felt like I belonged. Now I know this seems dramatic, but I just felt like I wasn't crazy. I felt like I had a team behind me and more people in my corner. A life I thought I would raise Nash alone, or as I evolved, even my family and friends would have a hard time getting me and relating to me and my abilities and gifts I was leaning into. Then I realized they got me on a spiritual level. But the more I got it myself and rooted to it just being me, the more I felt like others understood me too, regardless of what they believed in. I would put Nash to sleep and listen to recorded classes, show up for the live ones via Zoom, and study any chance I got. And he was right. This was exactly where I was supposed to be. And before finishing that first level, I got another one of those messages from Al. I was like, what now? And he added me to the level 2 class. Not only was I in the right place, but I was moving through it and gaining access to information and teachings that over the next couple of years would take my life to the next level and continue to from that day forward. What I realized is I will never be done learning, and that's how it's supposed to be. If we aren't learning, we're dying. A concept Albert Einstein made sure to leave us with. Through all of this growth and evolving, the light bulb soul moments, there were things that would still pop up. But I'd shift through them, not get stuck in them. Things would take days, maybe weeks to move through instead of months, years, lifetimes. One of those things, weekends. I started dreading those because realizing weekends are mainly family time. I never noticed that before, even when Bob was here, and now it was louder than ever. Nash and I would wake up early and wonder what to do with ourselves on a Saturday or Sunday, and we'd start with going to Whole Foods. And until you're there, do you notice in the mornings it's a lot of dads taking the kids to grab breakfast or run errands to get them out of the house so mom can have a break or a morning to herself? Now, I know I'm not the only widow that ever existed. I also know families come in all forms. It's when it breaks our norm, or what we know, that it's noticeable or painful. So we pushed through and we started getting into routines like Whole Foods for breakfast. We'd swing by the hot bar to grab bacon and then swing by the smoothie bar to get green smoothies. And we'd sit in the outside seating area and enjoy our makeshift breakfast with our new norm that looked very different than the normal. Then I did things like sign Nash up for indoor soccer. That was a weekend thing. His first practice was in September. I took him solo to a spot where a lot of people had both parents, or again, the dad was on duty. In those moments, I wondered if Nash noticed, if he noticed that we were different, and if he saw that as a bad thing. Or was that just me? Emotions and feelings were not something I was stuffing down, so I'd let the cycle work its way through, then plow through it, just knowing it is what it is. And I came up with a new phrase, which served me well. It was pretty much my response for everything that first year. Fuck it. The worry of showing up solo. Fuck it. The worry that people would be staring at me, chasing after a toddler I was trying to wrangle, and wondering if I was being judged for being a single mom. Fuck it. Having men reach out looking for Bob? Fuck it. Making decisions I wish I didn't have to make alone. Fuck it. People not getting me or my past, my story? Fuck it. Going through what I did and seeing what I saw with my eyes, it gave everything else in life less power over me. When you start to truly come out the other side, you're bulletproof. That is the upside to something like this. And saying fuck it to things is really saying, I'm letting go. I'm letting go of what I think I need or should worry about. For me, that meant less worrying and more being. Those little things that could seem like big things didn't hold the weight they once did. And the second I realized that, I saw things through a different lens. I was saying fuck it to the story my brain was creating and realizing if I am here in this moment, I know there's a damn good reason. Because we had a close call where life could have been very different. Or maybe myself or Nash wouldn't be here to tell this story, to share what we have and get to learn along the way. So worrying about the small stuff became just that, small. Still wrapping my head around this single mom thing and getting help in all the areas. I even hired someone who helped me sometimes with the bedtime routine with Nash, giving him a bath, helping getting him ready for bed here and there so that I could study or go out to dinner or do something with friends. In the beginning, though, she was there so I could shower before 11 p.m. or to get me on a routine, because for some reason I couldn't grasp the concept of time. So all of a sudden it would be dinner time, or all of a sudden it would be time to do a bath. So she was there to help me tackle the to-dos, or just get a break and have the company. There were moments just having someone else there at night was comforting, whether I had to pay her or not. She helped take the edge off here and there so I could see I could do this on my own. So I could have a breather, though, and get into a routine. I started to see that Nash and I were a balance of routine and YOLO. And if I was going to sit up and fight getting him to sleep from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m., there were better things I could use my time for. So maybe I just put him to bed at midnight without a fight. Now you might think I'm crazy, but Nash was a night owl. Anyone who was around us saw that. He wasn't grumpy, he wasn't fussy, he was just chillin'. So we'd watch movies together, play with Alvin, he'd play with toys while I studied, listen to music, hang out with family. What I started to see is what I was supposed to do was no longer my rule book. My rule book was taking all the information, my intuition, and trying things out to see what worked for us. Because if it worked for us, it really didn't matter what everyone else was doing. Everyone else wasn't us. They weren't living our life or processing what we were. So this was a start to us doing us and fighting against life less and leaning into the ease of it more. Another session with Alessandro. As you can tell, I was learning a lot from him at this time. I was absorbing every little thing he was throwing my way. And he said, "What's harder, falling at 80 or 8? Told him, 80? He explained why that is. At 80, there's more at stake. There's a broken hip. There's parts of our body that are really hard to recover from and repair, sometimes almost impossible. And he said, compared to 8, we jump back, we jump up and brush it off. He said, Nash was learning things through me and our experiences that were going to serve him well. He was going to bounce back up even quicker than me at 34. And I started to feel gratitude for our experience and what I was able to teach him. With our kids, we want to shield them, protect them, and keep them safe. And that is our job. It's also to help set them up for those times that we aren't here anymore, or they're not with us. That's more empowering than him relying on me. And what I was starting to see was that protecting Nash and shielding him from everything wasn't setting him up for this world. I needed to let things happen. I needed to let him fall. And of course, appropriate parameters. And him knowing I'm there, but to show him how much I trust him, his abilities, and that he can do this. If I always swoop in and save the day, what am I showing him? I'm showing him that he can't do it and that he needs me. And there's a very big difference between knowing someone is there to support you and feeling like you need them. I want him to know that anything he puts his mind to, he can do. I also was understanding that if Nash learned big lessons young, that means he wouldn't need to learn them later. So maybe all of this, I was able to set him up to see that he's an adult longer than he is a kid. And if his journey is to learn big lessons young, then maybe the majority of his life will have a flow to it instead of the other way around. We worry about our kids because we want them to be kids, and that is true. But sometimes we want them to be without big things happening because adult life is hard enough. And we think, save that for when you're older. But maybe we've been doing it all wrong all along. Well, not wrong, just maybe more effortful than it needs to be. Maybe our younger years are for mistakes and learning big lessons because the fall is less. But we learn the same core lesson with not as far to fall. So then when we're older, we're exempt from that lesson because we already learned it. Lessons don't get repeated once we take that golden nugget of experience and growth from it, no matter the age or experience. Life is meant to work in our favor. Not perfect, but in flow and timing that benefits us. Well, I'll tell you, we made it through summer and into the full swing that is the day we call Jeffapalooza, my dad's birthday. It's in September, and this particular year, the year Bob died, it was going to be his 60th. There were 4 days of events planned with parties each night and lots of playing during the day. The last time we all gathered was for Bob's service, so this was finally a time for us all to get together on new terms. Jeffapalooza was an event to remember, and still continues each year as all of us kids gifted my dad a contract that year. That said, every year we would all get together on his birthday, no matter what we were all doing or had going on. Kind of like a family reunion. And if you know my dad, he values most things money can't buy. And that's having all his kids in the same place at the same time and enjoying spending time together. I'm not going to say there weren't moments of us having some we definitely feel like someone's missing moments. Or when we made a gift for my dad to go with the contract, it was a photo album, and there were pictures of Bob in it with Nash, and the tears as he read what we wrote in his card. Knowing this was a tough year so far, but a reminder we can get through anything. What's the benefit of having such a loud-ass crazy family? Well, more crazies to have your back. I wondered if this next part I'm going to share was worth putting in, and I realized anything that was part of this process is worth sharing with you. Especially if it was a part of a big shifting point, which it was. So there's someone who worked for my parents at their house, and I didn't know him before all of this, but knew of him. Now, living at the house, I saw everyone that came through that door and worked with them. And this was around the time my mom was building what she now calls her she shed. a labor of love, a nice distraction, and something beautiful to make new memories in. And when I say she shed, don't get it twisted. It turned out like the opposite of a shed. I think she even has this rule, no boys allowed in the bathroom. She says it's too nice for that nonsense. So as workers and contractors started prepping for this magical shed, there were days where there would be multiple men flooding the backyard to make this happen. And although living there, I didn't really know of plans until people just started showing up. And most people that work with my family pretty much become family themselves, which means they also get family updates. So I knew most people were aware the widowed daughter lived up in the apartment. I was like a novelty until they saw me in real life or playing outside with Nash. I think it humanized the whole widow idea. So one morning I went to the window, which was by Nash's play area, and looked outside to see all the commotion. I saw a man walk across the yard with a ladder, and it was like it was playing in slow motion out of a movie. I instantly got butterflies, then flung my back against the wall to hide as if he saw me looking out the window. He didn't, but maybe I was hiding from myself, since I obviously didn't know what to do with a feeling like that. I looked around for a sec and I was like, what was that? This feeling of being attracted to someone, a part of me I thought would be dead for quite some time, and had been, was coming back to life. It was also a foreign feeling, one I never had with Bob. When Bob and I were together, I was in love with him and very much attracted to him, but this was different. It was jarring, confusing, liberating, and exciting all at the same time. Me and this mystery man would talk from time to time. He seemed to be going through a big life and family dynamic shift at the same time as me. That must have been why we were drawn to each other at this moment in time. Besides talking and passing and texting here and there, nothing came of it. But it showed me an example of how I deserved to feel, how I'm meant to feel. I chased that feeling, and it was my barometer for anyone I talked to or went on dates with for quite some time. It gave me a starting point, a real tangible thing to compare it to. Because if I would have started dating without that, I think I would have been even more lost and feeling like a fish out of water than I already was. And although confusing at the time, I'm very much grateful for those butterflies. It was a reminder I wasn't broken. The holidays started rolling through and everyone was on high alert, again. Kudos to that amazing village. I was kept busy, lots of support, and it was tough, but not like you would think. Really, for me, it was the second of things that was harder, when people had gotten back to their normal lives and the busyness around us had stopped. The firsts, everyone made sure to be around for everything. And that's even more than most people even get to experience. So I knew that was abnormal, and I welcomed it. To have your village around nonstop for a full year, that is more than I could have ever asked for. It was a gift. It was what my and Nash's soul needed. And it prepared me for the real firsts, which was the second year things rolled around, when people had gotten back to their own lives because they needed to. We needed them to. It allowed me to hit those firsts the second time, head on, and move through it with ease and grace. I had my moments for sure, but it definitely had an ease to it. My and Nash's birthday is smack in the middle of the holiday chaos. Mine at the end of November and Nash just a few days after mine in December. Birthdays I've always cherished because it is the only holiday that is unique to you, celebrated just for you, and most likely everyone can agree, you being a part of this world another year is worth celebrating. This would be the first year of birthdays being about reflection of the past year for me and what I was intending for the coming one. And I'm not joking when every holiday milestone or event was tended to and supported by my friends and family. So when my birthday rolled around, you can believe it had its own bells and whistles. A small group of us went to LA and ate at all the bougie Lisa Vanderpump restaurants, and our hotel was decorated with Fuck 2018 balloons. It was so much fun. And also when I figured out it would be fun to set up some dating app profiles. To me, it was comical and a little ironic I was even using them. But with friends in tow, it always made everything more lighthearted. I can say the dating apps were for sure entertaining, a little depressing at the same time. For some people, the apps are magical and work wonders. For others, the process feels a little clumsy, and I felt like who I was and how I live my life was really hard to translate over the app. How quickly my story came up with just a few simple questions. At the time, I was all about honesty, which I am today still. But I was like, give you all the information honesty. And most would be fine with it, but then would take some time to process. I think they were confused that I was telling them such an intense story, yet I was acting so, normal on the outside. And maybe they were thinking that they were waiting for me to break. But let's just say ghosting was comical, but not the normal type of ghosting. I'll explain more about this in the dating episode I do next. So I for sure tried out different processes while still staying true to myself. But this is the toddler learning how to walk phase. My MO was you might as well know sooner than later because this is my life and will be. So if you're going to run, let's save everyone some time. I started to realize the story wasn't a big deal to me because I moved through it. What I wasn't grasping yet is how overwhelming this was for other people, what it brought up for them. So I learned very quickly I was going to need to be with someone who could hold space not only for me and eventually Nash, but my story too, and support it, and what I was going to choose to do with it moving forward. I knew it would take a very strong, healthy masculine presence that valued growth like I did, and just got me. And that this was something they actually cherished about me, not something they saw as a problem or a concern. Someone who didn't think the spiritual side of me was weird and understood my unique bond with Nash and was able to keep up with where we were going. Now, I don't know about you, but you might be able to start to see how dating apps, this was hard to translate. So I did my, let's just have fun moments. But honestly, I needed depth. And if that wasn't there, the fact this stage of life and the dates, I moved to this process quick too. Kind of like Source was watching out for me here too. Like, bitch, we don't have time to waste. We aren't in any hurry, but they did a good job keeping people out of my path or bumping them off if the depth and growth opportunity wasn't there. Nash's second birthday was magical. It had pony rides, the little blue truck theme, and treats and food galore. And everyone showed up. This is where the love for the village grew even more for me. This was my heart outside of my body, and everyone made it a priority to rally around us, to show Nash how loved he is. Holidays were tough because my family makes them a big deal, and I always loved decorating to the nines. And the next birthday that was coming up, almost 2 weeks after Nash's, was Bob's. That was an interesting one. It was because that would never be replaced. His role in Nash's life would eventually be picked up by someone else, but his birthday would never be. So I figured we would have traditions, and that was looking like Nash and I getting a Christmas tree. And I got a small one, but I got one for the apartment. And I even got a tree stand and Googled how to get it in it. Hours, sore fingers, and lots of frustrated tears later, I finally got it up. A little crooked, actually a lot crooked, but I did it. I had it ready for Nash when he woke up the next morning. I was so fucking proud of myself. I was learning and doing things that I never had to learn to do before. I was getting a lot of practice at life. Knowing if I had to do things, I was prepared. But learning very quickly the things I would choose to pass off after that initial learning phase. Christmas was mellow. It was interesting to see the holidays just didn't have the same spark for us as they used to. Even though we were starting to get into our routine and our rhythm. And it was hard to think that Bob was the thing holding that spark. So I don't think that was it, but I think it was just the celebratory or feeling like acting the same felt weird when life was so very different in every way. What we needed was new traditions, new ways of celebrating. And this first year, we were still figuring out what that was. At the start of the new year, you can bet I very gladly said goodbye to 2018. We did it in fashion in Newport Beach, California, with my family and some of my siblings. We took a family trip to Newport Beach back in August, and that was the first time we had been there since we were there last, that week before Bob died. So this time around for New Year's, it felt like there were new memories being created, not reliving the old ones. So that New Year's was spent at a hotel lobby bar with some of my siblings, with my parents on Nash duty in the hotel room. And if you want to know how that night went, well, let's just say my youngest brother lost the battle between him and Jaeger. But it was a nice, lighthearted send-off to 2018. Around this time, I would start going on some of those dates I had been curating through the dating apps. They were interesting to say the least, and although being social came naturally to me, the idea of dating did not. I never really dated as an adult. I had boyfriends in high school and in college before I met Bob, but I don't think you can really categorize those environments as adult-type dating. And it's for sure its own beast dating as a widowed single mom and having the past I did. Or do. Something I couldn't really put my finger on, but thought it was funny about myself, was if and when I ended up talking to these guys on the phone, I already knew right away by their voice whether they were it or not. And by it, I just mean someone I had a spark with. At the time, I just thought I was being too picky or too aware, or out of the dating scene for so long that maybe subconsciously I was just pushing everyone away. Later, I'd come to realize it was that intuition making itself known. I was getting responses to things in real time and was getting practice at listening, or what not listening looked like. I was still figuring this all out, so with the novelty of dating and taking opportunities to get back out there, I saw it nothing more than practice either way. I would start to put the pieces together when I'd walk up and instantly could tell it wasn't a fit. And I never really had a bad date. I can chat it up with just about anyone. In my sorority for Rush Week, there would be a handful of us they'd act were like the Navy SEALs of recruitment. Send us in to seal the deal or start the deal, because we just naturally could hold conversation and put people at ease. Most of us also worked retail, so that's probably why. So making small talk and making other people feel comfortable came easy. So when I say fit with someone, like I walked up and just knew, I was looking for that spark that made me feel like it was worth pursuing. And I tried to explain this many times to my friends, and it was never about looks. It was like I could just pick up on something that already told me the ending of the movie before I even sat down. And I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. My intuition was getting louder and louder, and I was getting new ways with each experience on how to listen to it. I was picking up on their energy. And not that it was a bad energy, it just wasn't energy that matched or aligned or complemented mine. Something in the past would have taken me years and years to figure out. I was on a very intentional path now, even if I didn't know it as that. I had gone through so much and learned so many lessons in such a short period of time. The universe wasn't really keeping anything in my path that wasn't part of my evolving journey. My least favorite parts, which I talk more about in the dating episode with Par coming up, was having to break things off with guys, or the ghosting. To be clear, I was the one getting ghosted. I didn't do the ghosting. I knew how it felt, so it never was my way of cutting things off. Shortly after the new year, I started playing with the idea of Nash and I moving. I had always wanted to live in this cute little bougie town called Lake Oswego. It was actually like a dream of mine. So with this being the year of fuck it, and the year of doing what felt right and going about things with less force but with intention and surrender, I put it out there and let it be. It was rare for a place to come available and one that felt worth the cost, and not to mention the feeling I got about the house. But no joke, very soon after, an opportunity came up to rent a house from a family friend. Well, here we go. Things were moving and shaking, and I moved in February, just 1 month shy of the 1 year of Bob's passing. I felt like me, but the elevated version. After just coming back from a Valentine's Day trip with the girls in Manhattan Beach, California. See, I told you, they were on every holiday and milestone. I felt like my new life was officially starting for Nash and I. I was surprised how ready I felt to live on my own. The same person who couldn't sleep in a room by herself. I had come a long way in those 10 months, and the hard work had paid off. Classes were in full swing. I was a month away from graduating from my courses to become a spiritual teacher and teach classes myself. I was starting to take sessions on the side, and dating was happening. And now I actually felt like a real adult dating, since I wasn't living at my parents' house anymore. The move-in process happened over a few weeks, and as the unpacking continued, one night after Nash went to bed, with a million things on my mind, I went flying into the garage to grab something and swung open the door. As I stepped into the garage, my stomach dropped, and I gasped as I felt the air leave my body, like someone had jumped out to scare me. It was the first time I was in a house of mine that had a garage that was attached to the house by a door. Very normal concept for a house, right? But one I hadn't lived in since I found Bob. And in fact, the garage was similar in size and, like that experience, filled with all of my things. A real deliberate reminder that PTSD did not care how spiritual I was. What I didn't give myself credit for was all the other things that weren't triggering me, like living and sleeping alone, or the fact that it was nighttime outside, or the fact that I no longer visualized Bob 24/7, or the fact I was so startled when I walked into that garage because my mind wasn't even in that headspace. It was like my body and mind were trying to get the PTSD out of the way, but I had to acknowledge it to let it cycle through. I processed it, worked through it, brought it up in my next therapy session with Dr. Nancy and in class the following week, and worked through it, and it never happened again. There's only 2 other times I got flashback feelings like these over the next couple of years, and they were very different scenarios, and they never repeated themselves. It was like a one and done sort of thing. I use them as a reminder of what I've gone through, how far I've come. With all of my healing, my experience has for sure lost its power over me. And the knowing I got this, no matter what comes up. And the knowing that once I got what the gift was in any given situation, that meant it never could happen again. The comfort that brings not only welcomes the sticky spots, but acknowledges the power we have to rewrite our story anytime we choose. Nash and I called this house our favorite house, the one with the blue door. The layout, the fact Nash had his own little man cave downstairs where every toy of his had its own spot. Small, but big enough, and a fern gully backyard, and a room detached from the house that was transformed into my little oasis, my healing room. The most magical space and the most perfect spot for our life reset. The house gave us an understanding of what we loved about that house, so we can bring clarity and ease as we evolve someday into a more long-term one. Houses have energy, and this house had a safe, happy energy, one that felt good. I will tell you, the feeling I got when I moved into my house with Bob, it felt off. Not to the extent of what played out, of course, but a reminder that the feelings I get are something to be trusted. And that feeling is different than, let's say, emotions. It's a feeling I get in my body that gives me more information than any words, advice, or research could ever give. When I mentioned months after Bob died, I was in this limbo of figuring out my gifts and abilities and the difference between the physical and spiritual world. I was learning a lot about how this world works and even more about myself. Maybe I always felt like I didn't fit in. Or the fact I would get feelings about things and I couldn't put my finger on them. As intuitives, empaths, clairvoyants, there are senses we get information from. And there are a handful, but normally we have like a top 3. Mine are feeling, hearing, and seeing. Now, before you go 6 cents on me, the feeling is a feeling I get in my body. It's my intuition guiding me. To me, it's like a compass. It can't be explained, it just is. And if I trust it, you can too. Same with hearing. It's my voice. I hear my own in my own head, but I get answers to things. And again, depending on what I'm asking, it's my intuition and source-driven. To clarify, anything I ask is source-driven. That means it's from a higher power, one that has the ability to see the bird's eye view and always guiding with the highest good of everyone involved. Now, as for seeing, it's probably much more mellow than what you might think or have in your mind right now. I see visuals in my head almost like a movie projector. if I casually think to myself, let's say I need to go to the store, I very quickly will get a visual that pops up before I even finish asking myself the question, like, where should I go? And most likely it's somewhere I've been before. If I didn't know any better, I would think of it like an idea. But the difference here is if I get a visual and I think, well, that place, that store, is further than the store down the street. So for convenience, I'm going to go to the closer one. Obviously, right? But maybe I get to the closer one and they've closed early, or they're out of what I'm actually needing. So my intuition was guiding me where to go, but my logic took over and made that decision from my brain instead of my intuition. Now you're probably wondering, why am I telling you all of this? Well, since we're becoming fast friends, I figured we might as well just hit this home and get real vulnerable. Hi, my name is Marlo, and you have just gotten a crash course on me and that first year of my and Nash's new life, and that past one. What I have shared with you so far are just chapters of our life, not the whole thing. In my opinion, the fun stuff is what I get to share with you from here. As the first year of Bob's passing came around, it was honestly magical in the support that surrounded us. In our new house, the day was a more human moment. But what I didn't anticipate was the day before. I have found most of the time, the day before is more noticeable because of the anticipation, I think. Then, when the day actually comes, it's just a day. For me, more about reflection than sadness. And with each passing year, it becomes more and more normal. And when we reached the point of Bob being gone from Nash's life, longer than he was here, I realized for us, that was a big shifting point. A release in a way. What does ebb and flow is how I navigate and explain this to Nash. And with time, how I've gotten so good at it just being the two of us, and then having to use my tools and experience to allow the chance to let someone else in. I've learned I'm really good at being solo, and that feels safe to me. The next up level of growth has come with letting someone else in and allowing them to be there for us in a spot that once was not cherished, that I had to protect. But that's not our story anymore. You think this has been a wild ride? Which it has, but this is only the beginning. The things I have learned from this point forward have blown my mind and been tough in different ways, but equally beautiful. I wrote a letter to Bob on the second year of his passing, which I originally thought it was the 1 year. That's how fluid life has been for us. What happened between the first and second year, I'll continue to share through future episodes, interviews, spiritual teachings, mini healings, and through my continued mode of teaching, which is storytelling. So, to close one chapter and start another, I want to read you that letter I wrote to Bob. Bob. OMG. Where the F have you been? Okay, don't answer that. But really, what the fuck? So much to catch up on. For starters, that choice you made to leave this physical world, that was a big bummer. I'm guessing you know that though. Ultimately, it was your choice to make, but everyone that knew you wished you had made a different one. When I found you in that moment, I have to say it was the worst thing I had ever seen in my life. Besides the visual, it didn't feel like I was looking at the person I knew, loved, was married to, had a kid with, grew alongside, took countless beer bongs next to, laughed until I couldn't breathe with, and dressed up in every Halloween costume under the sun with. I felt like I was looking at a murderer, someone who had taken you from me. I have never been so scared in my life, for multiple reasons. A few being, how was I going to live this life without you, overcome what I had seen, and now I had a baby to raise on my own? This scenario never once crossed my mind, no matter what we were dealing with. I don't have to tell you what happened after that. I know you have an idea. The phone calls. The whirlwind of the minutes, hours, days, weeks following. The heaviness and sadness that set in. The cloud that Easter had around it. Easter was only 2 days after you left. I've come a long way. Like super long way. Like I think it still weirds people out. But I'll be honest, Easter will always remind me of that heaviness. I guess until it doesn't anymore. Did you see me and the girls, the bestie crew, run through Target to try and find anything and everything that could be assembled into an Easter basket? I wanted some sense of normalcy for Nash, like having a really great Easter basket would change that his dad was gone. But I wanted him to know life would still go on no matter what we were going through. Well, try and look for Easter baskets the day before Easter. Impossible. So I found a bunch of random shit and used the remote control holder thingy as a basket. Nash couldn't have cared less. A 15-month-old can't grasp much, but he knew to ask for you. I was pretty upset with you for that. He started understanding that he wasn't going to see you again. Every time he asked, we would talk about you, and he would grab your picture and hand it to me. Like, yeah, lady, whatever, but really, where is he? That lasted a little less than a year. I was pretty impressed by his ability to grasp the concept and almost treat it as just a fact of life. Our life. Did you see all the amazing people and support that crowded around Nash and I? It was pretty special. It was like a cleanup crew came in and didn't leave for a while. The ripple effect it had on those closest to us and the people closest to them, I don't think you had any clue how far that reach would go. For everyone to show up for me, they had to ask their people to show up for them. It was like around-the-clock detective work, help with Nash, distracting me with fun trips, and finalizing very adult things that only a 34-year-old single mom widow would know what I'm talking about. Thank you for allowing me to see how amazing the people in my life are. The deep appreciation to my core that makes me smile often wouldn't be there without the choices you made. The first couple of months, I had a heaviness in my heart. It was confusing, sad, and lonely, even with a room full of people. It was all internal, though, as I continued with life. Being a mom, all the things that were on that to-do list in the beginning. I remember sitting and playing with Nash and feeling present, but my mind was constantly racing. It was a whole new level of adapting when I was put in social situations without you, especially ones that you would have been a part of. Everyone around me was on high alert and filled space as they could to help lessen the blow. The ones that really got me, though, were ones with families, and it was now Nash and I walking in, missing a piece of our family. Around this time, we went to a second birthday party for Par's girls, and Nash saw someone that looked like you. He kept pulling on my leg and saying, Dada, Dada. He kept trying to get my attention, but also wasn't sure, so he was hiding behind me. My heart sank. I was frustrated with you. Was he always going to be looking for you? Why did he think you would be at a party and not come say hi to him? I put on a brave face for the rest of the party but felt uneasy. Nash got comfortable and was wandering around. When I came around the corner, I saw the man he thought was you holding him. I took a deep breath and thought to myself, Bob, what have you done? I said that a handful of times to your face that last week you were here, and said it again when I found you that night. The last time I said it in your direction was that day at the party. I left that party and that was the emptiest my heart had felt. I decided in that moment I needed to figure that part out. I scheduled a call with my now teacher and we addressed that day. What we spoke about changed my life. The tools he gave me, the perception shift, the awareness and understanding were next level. I never looked back. That heaviness was lifted instantly. Thank you for creating hard moments that tugged at my heart to a point I wanted to change them. My now teacher reached out to me a few days later and asked me to be a part of his teacher training program and brought up his thoughts on my abilities and my soul path as a healer. I wouldn't have found this soul path of mine without you. It's what I'm here to do. Simply, it's who I am, and I have finally found what to do with it. Thank you. There was a shift. I hit the ground running to heal, recover, learn, grow, and get all the help from all the areas and all the people. Nash deserved that, so the work began. And I found it. My process, my healing, my hobbies, my passion, my career, my soul pull, myself. It was like the puzzle piece that had been missing for decades, that I didn't even know was missing, finally was put into place. I had to let go of all that I knew before. It changed me completely. For the better. All of this did. Thank you for that. I realized how putting myself last had created a life I didn't recognize, and learning how to put myself first and the ripple effect of healing that has on everyone around me. Being my best version and filling my cup up first allows me to be that person for others. Thank you for playing the role you did in my life. It was a very important one, and always will be. You leaving set me on fire again, because it had to. I depended on you for a lot. Too much. Remember how I would get so scared whenever I had to stay home alone overnight? That rarely ever happened. But when it did, I would call you with every noise I heard, and once it got dark, every light in the house got turned on. I would exhaust myself with the loud TV to almost eventually pass out, instead of willingly going to sleep. Thank you for showing me how strong I am, how capable I am, how nice it is to live alone with Nash and Alvin. Something I dreaded, I actually embrace and like now. You showed me some pretty scary, sad, surprising things your last days here. It helped switch my view on life before I even learned how to understand it all. Nothing is ever that big of a deal with what I've gone through. The things that are, I hold close to my heart and protect it, physically, mentally, and energetically. And with a bunch of hippie shit. So many crystals. You would die if you saw the person I am today and how it compared to the person you knew. Well, you know what I mean. Same, but different. You always knew that hippie spiritual side was there, but if you could see it now, you must have known the route I would go before I did, because in the letter you left me, you seemed to acknowledge that. I've learned a lot about how all of this works in the energetic world. I know you have too. You're not physically here, but you're around. Thanks for watching out for us now in a way that you couldn't while you were here. There were so many waves of feelings and emotions those first 6 months after you left. So much was coming up and so much shifting. I was for sure just along for the ride. What was constant was that I missed you. I missed you as a person, my best friend, and Nash's dad. I missed just seeing you. I told myself I didn't even need to talk to you. I just wanted to see you. 14 years of seeing you and talking to you every day, then just like that, you were gone. It made me so grateful that I was the last person to talk to you and that it was the best conversation we'd had in days. My brain had a hard time catching up though. I knew whether you were here or not, it was never going to be the same. You and I both knew that. I missed you days before you even physically left. The person that held majority of my inside jokes and knew how to keep me grounded was gone. There was a big hole, an obvious one. I now had to figure out how to feel that for myself and Nash. Thank you for forcing me to have to figure that out on my own. How silly to think someone else was holding my ability to regulate how I feel and handle situations. How could I expect you to hold that space if I couldn't even do it myself? Thank you for being my match until we weren't. You decided for multiple reasons that this life was not for you anymore. Based on the tools you had and what was affecting you, you thought your choice was the best answer. I know that. I was almost half your book, and you, chapters in mine. To this day, that's still so weird to me. I know that feels the same for anyone that knew us together. You gave me things, experiences, a very special person, and opportunities I am most grateful for. For that, I wouldn't change a thing. Nash. Man, does he make facial expressions like you and is stubborn as all hell. That's all you. As well as his feet. They're identical to yours. And the hair. You'll be glad to hear he doesn't have that small bald spot you were starting to get, though. I can tell you, something you were so self-conscious about when I was saying my final goodbyes to you, it didn't matter. None of it did. Thank you for showing me what really is important in this life. Bald spots are not one of them. I crossed paths with someone pretty early on who gave me a feeling in butterflies that I'd never felt before. It surprised me. Nothing came of it, but it was the beginning of me realizing that there's another person out there for me. You and I were truly meant to be together for the time we were meant to be together. It made me see there is another soulmate I'm going to bump into down the road. You and I were soulmates, but in a different way. Different purpose and different stages of life. Not the love of my life. If that weren't the case, we'd still be together. There's another soulmate that's the final piece that fits into the puzzle I call me and Nash. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to find him again. The first year was filled with a lot of shifting, ebbing, flowing, and love. Lots of love and support, an abundance of it. Every big milestone, holiday, 1-year mark was supported in huge ways with the village that surrounded me and Nash. You'd be pretty impressed. That 1-year mark of you being gone, I didn't know what to expect. It was, of course, filled with friends all around, but was different than I expected. What I noticed is that sometimes the day before a big day tends to be filled with more awareness and reflecting than I realized. I think that's due to the anticipation of the actual day. A lot of people say the first of things are the hardest. I'm not sure about that. I'm not really sure there is a word to articulate it. I will say the second of things is when life was back to normal, and it's not so much hard as it is eye-opening and raw. The support and love is still there, but it's just different. Functioning in the real world, the new normal. For me, because more time passed, more experiences, I've accumulated more tools. I'm more used to my new life. It does have an ease to it that the first year did not. And I've learned how to take what comes up and process and move through it. So it's a moment instead of a day, week, month, year, lifetime. I know you had dealt with your own trauma and loss in your life. Thank you for allowing me to see how you handled it. It was an eye-opener to have a front row seat to how the lack of awareness and tools can affect our choices and overall happiness with ourself and life. I wasn't able to see any of that until after you left. I'm honored I was a part of your life to have that to reference. I will now make sure Nash has those tools, awareness, perspective, and deep love for himself to handle things that come his way for his highest good. That is priceless. There are things I used to think, I wish Bob was here. Then I realized, you wouldn't have wished you were here, and that changed how I saw things. Like how when we want something so bad for someone, but we realize it's based on what we want, not what would make them happiest. Us parents do that a lot with our kids. I wanted you here. I wanted you happy, healthy, and strong. But you weren't going to be able to hold that space, were you? You knew that. No matter what I told you, we could overcome. You had your mind made up already. I'm bummed you couldn't get there. But again, that's not up to me. If you were going to be able to, you would have. I think for once in your life, you truly did something you wanted to do. So I have to let you have that. That's on you, and you wanted it that way. I'm glad I had so many years with you so that I have pictures, stories, and memories that will last a lifetime. Endless hours of entertainment for Nash down the road. Thank you for all the memories. Your laugh is one of my favorite ones. I date here and there. You know that too. I've talked with multiple people about how I feel like if you were here, I would totally talk to you about my dating life. I'm not even going to go into it. You have an idea. I know, right? What is my life? Movie-worthy at times, that's for sure. Sometimes I laugh and wonder if you're fucking with me, though. If so, you win. Thank you for creating a past that guided me to my intuition and how to listen to it and strengthen it. I learned a lot from our relationship, like so much. How I approached it and dealt with situations. Let's just say it's a night and day difference, but it was in alignment with who we were then. Those were the roles we were supposed to play for each other in this lifetime. Thank you for giving me so many experiences to reflect and work on. So I now can experience partners that match this elevated version of me. Oh, and I am so good at apologizing now. Day late and a dollar short? You used to love those cowboy one-liners. I've now found myself saying them to Nash. Thanks a lot. There are firsts for Nash that you watch from the sidelines now. Through all of this, the healing happened quick for me because I dove headfirst and it all clicked. The part that took a bit longer and will continue will be how this affects Nash. Each stage will be different, and we'll transition with it, and so will he. You'd be proud of him. He's one strong-ass bitch. I'm going to take credit for that one, but I am also the one that pays for it. I'm going to be honest. The single parenting started out as the hardest part about being gone. Now, with more time that has passed and experiences, it has become, well, normal. There are moments for sure, but thank you. Being able to do this makes me realize I can do anything. Remember when clipping Nash's nails would freak me out? I couldn't even watch while you did it, and the whole time I kept screeching that you were going to clip his fingers off. So annoying. Sorry. I clip that shit in my sleep now. I of course still have my human parenting moments, but I got this. And the moments it feels a little less than that, I regroup and figure it out. What I've learned through all of this is going to instill a very strong, grounded, healthy foundation for Nash. Thank you. I can't say I would have had that awareness or ability otherwise. I knew things were different when I took Nash to his first day of school. It felt weird because we were used to you being gone. I wasn't used to what you being gone meant for Nash once he left our bubble, though. I was blindsided by that. Didn't think that was possible anymore. So much so, I cried for a hot sec in the car on the phone with Par. Through all of this was my biggest concern, how this would all affect him. As a parent, we try and protect our kids as much as possible, especially from things we think they shouldn't have to deal with, or things we dealt with that we want to avoid so badly for them. I realized that day. He chose this life as much as you and I did. His lessons are going to mold him into the amazing human being he was put here to be. Who am I to say how he's supposed to get there? He's meant to do big things. I truly believe that. He has to. His personality says so. And by big things, I'm talking about the stuff that sets his soul on fire, whatever that looks like. I'll make sure of it. Thank you for forcing me to be all the things for Nash. It has elevated what I want for myself as a person, so I can be that and more as a parent. It has allowed me to master my intuition, throw rules and social norms out the window, and help me see how beautiful life is from this angle. It's pure magic and it flows. Nash's life will be better because of it. Well, back to the school topic for Nash. The first school wasn't the right fit, so I did the work and found some others and landed on one a week later. I didn't think twice about it being just me that was dropping him off for his first day of school, the second time around, until I sat down to write this. It helped me see that I become more resilient and adaptable with each experience. Thank you. I have to also remember that Nash knows no different. It's those of us that knew you that are bummed for him. He won't feel the same way we do about it because he won't remember you like the rest of us do. I think that's another piece that tugs at my heart. It's also something my heart is grateful for. I guess you could call it that balance. But back to it. If you were meant to be here for this stuff, you would be. You were here for all the things you were meant to be here for. As he gets older, there will be more explaining to do, and that will unfold as it's supposed to for him. We'll figure it out. Thank you for giving me this experience so I can be that much more helpful to others and those I work with. The long list of experiences have molded me into the person I am now, and I am more me than I ever have been. What's next? Good question. I'm into planning to not plan. It's a delicate balance, that's for sure. I know you're probably wondering, where's this person while you were here? Let's just say you'd think I'm a lot of fun. Mr. Nash and I will probably make our next move/plan by the end of the year. Possibly we'll stay in Oregon. It's also been thrown around moving to California. I also know there might be options that haven't crossed my consciousness yet. I'm open to whatever comes up, all the things, and whatever is going to align best for me and Nash. I know there are a handful of people that just shit their pants at that thought. Thank you for creating situations I had to become very good at surrendering to. Without all of that, I would still have that white knuckle grip on life, trying to control it, ultimately sucking the life out of it. I have a feeling there will be things that cross our path that will make it very clear which direction to go in. I'm not worried. Oh yeah, that too. I don't worry about much anymore. Okay, I'll stop. Told you I was fun. Today you've been gone for 2 years. It feels like it's been a lifetime. Other times it feels weird I can't just call you up and say hi or tell you it would be great if you could come get Nash before we both hurt each other. As time goes on, I can't picture where you would fit in anymore. The space that felt like it had a big hole is gone. New memories, new experiences, and a new path is being paved. Our new life will always have your memory. You will always be a part of it. You will always be a reminder on why we are where we are today and where we're going. Where there was a hole, it's now healed, and it has taken on a new shape. It looks different, but Nash and I are cool with that. Different is our MO. There's one other part to the healing that will be the final piece to this process. It will feel like I can close this chapter. I'm going to share our story on a large scale. A book, podcast, documentary, who knows? Time will tell how it all plays out. It's important this story gets told. For me, for Nash, for you, and all the other people it's going to help. It's saved and changed lives already. The world's going through a big shift right now. It's time. Shit, there is a lot packed into those 10 days before you left. Our history, what I've learned through this transformation, and where I'm going from here. The fact that Nash and I are here to tell this story, well, that still blows my mind. That was a close call, huh? I'm going to tell our story, and it's going to be all the things. You'll have to let me know what you think. Until I hear your contagious laughter and see your sweet smile again. Thank you. Now I gotta go. These lemons are off to make lemonade. Thanks so much for being here. Please rate, like, share, and review so we can stay connected and continue this magical journey together.